Hello and welcome back to Everyday Strengths. I'm Trey Gammage, and this is really a kickoff episode to the latest version of what is formerly known as the Dash Podcast. If you've been keeping up with myself, Trey Gammage, on social media, you know that I used to go by SEO Educators in my business, and over the past few months, we've updated to strengths-based training. I've actually taken the majority of 2024 off when it comes to podcasting to yet again reorganize and refine what the business is and the way that we serve and support our community. So I'm excited to talk with you today about strengths that I've been working on and how to dive deeper into those strengths and what exactly that means for me and what it means for the content and the way that it's going to be rolled out over time. For my OGs of the Dash Podcast, I started this platform as an opportunity to understand the passion, the purpose, and the process that people go through. I was about 23, maybe 24 years old, and the idea was just to interview the people that I saw on the way to success or that had already reached what looked like success at some point in time. Through those first 32 or 72 episodes, I started to shift my strengths and start to learn that it was actually education was where I wanted to put my focus at. So when we broke things down after those first 72 episodes, I took a break. And that's where my first book came in, Every Decision Counts, 8 Lessons I Wish They Taught Me in School, which you can read on our websites, strengthsbasedtraining.com, and it's also available on Amazon. After those first 72 episodes in the first break, I wanted to make an alignment because I had started the podcast to leave a legacy, essentially. At this point, there's over 250 episodes of content that my family can go back and listen to at whatever point in time. They wanted to know what was on my mind or what was going on for me during the early stages of my business. So it was in large part documenting the process. When I got through episode 72, all the way up through episode 249, there was a heavy emphasis on social emotional learning, school leadership, and culture and climate. I interviewed leaders across the nation, internationally. I think you've had listeners in over 63 states and over 25,000 views, in which we were able to marry kind of my own street level view of data with what folks were seeing from India, South Africa, Germany, Switzerland, Canada, Japan, and across the United States. So there's a lot of cool things that have come through the podcast. And so here we are again at another phase where it's time to pivot and time to shift. The Dash Podcast was an opportunity to make your passion your platform for purpose. And now where I'm at, as I'm developing, as I'm growing as a man, as a professional, as a husband, I'm seeing another shift for us. Throughout my time in business, which is now close to 8 years, 9 years, started in January of 2017. So however many years that is, as an established business, I'm seeing and I saw how through podcasting, when I said adult SEO to folks, they didn't know what I was talking about. And so I would call the school district or get on the phone with folks and say, yeah, I support adult social and emotional learning. And I would just get bounced around from one community to another community or department, I should say. But after I actually got to listen to or read Dr. Byron McClure and Dr. Kelsey Reed's book on hacking deficit thinking, I started to really lean into strength. I got to interview both of them, got to read the book, got to work with them and explore the concepts more. For me, I always understood asset-based community development, and I found myself delivering asset-based professional development. But what I got through strengths-based training and hacking deficit thinking was a language and a simplicity to what I had been trying to get across to folks, that either I wasn't doing a good job or the leaders didn't understand, you all didn't understand. Once I made that shift, really through 2024 and the end of 2023, the conversations that I started to have with school leaders and teams got a lot easier. Instead of talking about adult SEL, when I speak about leveraging strengths, it immediately clicks, and a, it has a ring to it where it makes, even if you don't really understand your own strengths or know what I mean by strengths-based training, you understand what strengths are, and that in most cases, those strengths are going to be underdeveloped in a lot of ways. See, I started doing this in 2017, and the way that I actually started focusing on strengths and using strengths assessment was my very first client asked me to develop a way to monitor our teachers' growth and their well-being in a evidence-based fashion. And so my initial idea was to use some journals and some notebooks, and he was like, "No, we need to use assessments." And so since that time in 2017, there's been over 800 educators that have gone through some version of my strengths-based training program. And now we're at the place where it's a lot easier to see and understand how to really get the end result and see what comes at the end of the assessment. Initially, I think we know what our strengths are. We know what it means to identify our strengths. But what does it mean to apply your strengths to be more effective in your role? And that's the question that I'm looking to help people understand. And that's the question that I find that we are answering and solving for folks as well. How do you leverage your strengths to be more effective in your role? Let me share my screen here for a moment, and I'm actually going to show you exactly what I mean by that. Here's a copy of my DISC benchmark report. And so you can see here that this has my name, Trey, and it's comparing me to other training and development specialists. With the assessment platform that I'm utilizing, we've got these benchmarks that are already templated, and there's also additional ones that can be created. Now, I've been a training and development specialist for about 7 years now, 8 years now. And so I've taken this assessment 13 times, about twice a year, over the past 7 years. And so what I've been able to see is how my strengths have adapted to be more effective in my role as a training and development specialist. This here is a benchmark report. And what it does is look at my own style of communication and compare it to the average of most people that have the role of a training and development specialist. So I'm getting to see here is that there's an 88% compatibility between myself and other folks that are in this role. Some of this is a little detailed, so I'm going to go into a couple pockets here and show you how here's where I show up. I lead as an influencer. I show up in an influencing style, and that's very much in alignment with my job profile benchmark. That also leads with their I style, but the biggest difference is they have more of this C, which is focused on rules, and I have more focus on assertiveness, which is a direction towards solving problems. So that change is really what makes up the difference of probably that 88% to 100%. But that's the variability that I can have as a leader or as an employee to be able to make that position my own. So as I'm going through and I'm working with teams, or I'm working with schools, or I'm working with leaders, sometimes they just want a benchmark to know, hey, am I in the right place? What skills am I working on? What skills am I lacking? What skills do I need to develop? And so a benchmark like this is something that we can even do at the beginning and end of the year. At the start of the school year, I can take this assessment and implement some activities. And at the end of the year, I can measure myself against myself and see what areas that I've grown and changed. And so this is effective for leaders because we are not given many opportunities to practice self-awareness and self-management. It's next to non-existent in undergraduate in teacher or principal development programs. So when it's introduced in a professional development training or in an assessment format, it's some new information and it's not always the easiest to be welcome. So I found that making the switch from adult SEL to strengths-based training has really helped folks understand the value of the kind of work that we're doing with strengths and also the kind of tools that are available to support people in their strengths in their growth and development process. The benchmark is even a new way that I've found to support folks after multiple years of developing strengths and developing their strengths. The work that we have is different than other assessment tools and even SEL options because it operates as a prescription, but also has a diagnosis to it as well. I'm not just helping you see and understand your strengths, I'm helping you apply your strengths to be more effective, not just at work, but also at home. These things should work together and not against each other. That's something that has been coached into me and emphasized from a personal level and from a professional level as a business, as I receive business coaching, I should say. The reason that I talk about leveraging strengths at home and work is when we're looking at these strengths assessment, and this one's particularly is a disc assessment, we see that there's a natural style and an adapting style. What that essentially means is your natural style is a better indicator of the real you than your instinctive behaviors. Your adaptive style is more so how you show up or feel like you need to show up at work to be effective in that role. And what I'm trying to do, what I've been successful at doing at strengths-based training, is helping people see where there's a discrepancy and marry that discrepancy to build a powerful team and organization, but also a strong individual who have a considerable improvement in personal and professional well-being. What you're looking at here is that natural style, again, my knee-jerk reaction, more of my natural abilities, and then my adapted or my nurtured abilities, how I believe I'm going to show up. And what we see here is a big shift from this C style, which is someone who prefers to follow rules, goes from 45% focus on rules to a 77% focus. So that's a 30% increase in how much effort this person is spending on following rules. Another one here, I, 41, goes up to 80. That's almost that is a 39% jump in outgoingness and fast pace and people orientation. That's a big jump. At the same time, we're reducing our D level, which is the need to be assertive and solve problems, by about 30 points. And so there's several things that this can say. On one end, you may say, well, I'm a single mom or I'm a single dad, and I make all the decisions at home. And when I go to work, I'm in an administrative role, and that means I have to show up in a different way. Cool, great. You understand that shift that's happening and why it's important for you to make it, go for it. But if that shift is unaware to you and you feel stressed or you feel burnt out, that's a big reason why. When we think about that further, this wheel helps you see it a bit more. The I represents how you are naturally, excuse me, not the I. Circle represents how you are naturally. And the more close to the outside of this ring somebody scores, the more like you that, like, I'm very assertive. You're going to see me be assertive pretty much when you're sitting. Versus at the school level or at the professional level, I'm close to the middle, which means it's adaptive. Doesn't have to represent a problem, but if you think about the shift, if I think about every day having to clock in and shift from being assertive and very flexible, you clock out and go back from being flexible to assertive, over time, that can cause anxiety, that can cause stress, that can cause burnout. And this is the reason why I'm looking to marry these two together and help there be a positive correlation between your natural and your adaptive ability. There's nothing wrong with this score. I just want you to keep an eye on where stress may be, where it may come from. From a team level, I'll put myself on Front Street here, and I mentioned that I take this assessment a couple of times a year and have done so since I started my business back in 2017. And so what I've been able to do is put together a chart of how I show up. I talk to folks all the time about how they show up, and I don't want to be a hypocrite. So I do the work that I ask folks to do as well. And so what you'll see here is a team dynamics report. And so we can see for myself, naturally, I'm either an I or a D style. For the last 7 years, I fit in one of these two categories. And when I show up at work, there's been times though when I'm a C or I'm an S, but for the most part, I still fit in these two categories. And what they're showing me here with my natural and my adaptive shifts, that for the most part, you see that I'm in that assertive to persuasive mode. And then my adaptive style still stays in the assertive part, but I get more of the analytical nature. And so I can tell you, and I can remember in those seasons where I've been forced to be much more analytical, to be assertive and persuasive, I've been more stressed, right? But these are also the seasons when I'm often growing and developing skills to be a better version of myself. So because I don't see this alignment doesn't mean that it's bad or that it's wrong or it shouldn't be there, but it represents something. And so for some folks, it represents a level of stress that you are unaware of. For some folks, it represents an area of growth and development. For some folks, it represents a necessary shift because of who you have to be at home and who you have to be at work. But as I have this information, it's helping me see even closer and more deeply of where my strengths lie. As a D style, I'm very forward looking and competitive. I'm looking for problems to solve. I like power and authority, and I'm motivated by direct answers. But my limitations, I can overstep my authority within the team. I could use fear as a motivator. I could overextend my ego. I could be poor or a selective listener and dislike routine work. Those are some things to look out for. On the persuasive side, you saw me, I was very naturally where my skills are. Utilize my social and verbal skills, bring cohesion to the team, but I could be disorganized and messy and also emotional and act on impulse. So I'm seeing what where my strengths are and what my limitations are. Furthermore, I can see where I'm gonna butt heads with folks. So me as an I style, I'm butting head with these C style folks who is usually administration and folks that are over accountability and things of that nature. And then with my D style, it's folks that are a little more slow paced. This is both of them right here, actually. So the S is more careful with decisions. I make them fast. They're slow paced, fast paced. They're indirect. I'm direct. So there's places that I'm going to butt heads with my team members. And the more that I can recognize individual, the more that my team can recognize that as a unit, the more cohesive we can work as a team and develop a powerful unit. The greatest thing that I've experienced here in 2024 is having 30-day follow-up calls and 60-day follow-up calls, and even folks that have changed jobs. I had a woman that I've had opportunity to work with for multiple years. She changed roles and we're having conversations about how to work in her new job. And she told me that she brought one of her worksheets to her job view. There's a worksheet that we do called communication summary. It summarizes your communication preferences, your wants, your needs, your motivators, even your tendencies in the workplace. And what she did was take this worksheet filled out with her own information, her top do's, motivators, style tendencies, areas of improvement, and she showed it to the folks that she interviewed with to set boundaries before she even started her new job. I was like, wow, that's wow, that's crazy. That's amazing to see and to hear. So that's a tool that was practical, not just in the training, but even in transition to another role. I've had another teaching staff that has taken the initial assessment and they're actually using the same worksheet before meetings. And so before tough meeting, before a meeting for a challenging conversation, we're taking these worksheets and applying them to have more win-win conversations in the community. This is perfect. So great, in fact, we're working on developing a tiered implementation approach. So after folks go through an initial strengths training, they have 10 to 12 activities to implement on a monthly basis from a tier one level that you can do individually or as a whole group and develop your own strengths, as well as tier two, tier three. There's a third school community that is, they have a group me chat and they're using posters of their communication styles and summaries. And we've also developed some worksheets. So they have a motivation Monday where every Monday they take time out as a staff to provide motivation. And so we've developed some strengths worksheets for them and updated those worksheets for the client so that they're able to use these worksheets to provide ongoing support for the community, even if it's not a 2 hour, 4 hour, or half day training that folks have. Now, the last area and probably the main area of focus for me is leadership effectiveness. And so my thought is that these skills of awareness and these skills of management lead to greater effectiveness. And when I say it, I think about personal and professional effectiveness. So this runs on both ends when it comes to being effective as an adult, period. You want to have levels of that leadership effectiveness. And so I've found opportunities to provide leaders with feedback. Gallup has reports that show that only 42% of leaders receive feedback from their subordinates or from their employees and team members. And so leaders are often not getting this feedback to make them better. And so we know the strengths that we are aware of. We know the areas of weakness, but what about the blind spots? What about the areas of unknown strengths that we could do more of? What about the blind spots that if we knew they were there, we could improve staff morale just like that? So when it comes to effectiveness, there's a couple approaches that I've been able to take and that we've been able to take. And one of those is a 360 style assessment where you complete the assessment and have your team or a set number of team members complete a similar assessment so we can see how you all score compared against each other. The other option is a leadership executive insights survey. And I've skipped to the bottom because it gives us our workplace competencies broken down with 35 competencies. And it ranges from strong access to the strength, meaning that you understand your ability and how to leverage that strength for success, good access, and then we have down to average and capacity to develop or blind spots. So as I walk through here, I'm able to look at working with others. Is that a strength? Managing activity, problem solving. There's our top strength right there. Planning and organizing, getting things done. So there's looks like our lowest right here, along with getting things done. So from these 35 initiatives, now I have the framework for an annual professional development plan. I understand what strengths I need to leverage. I understand the areas individual and as a group to develop. And now I've got the rest of this report that's going to walk me through how to use this information so that I can leverage my strengths, the best version of myself, not just at school, but also at home. Because what good is professional success if it doesn't lead to personal boundaries. A few other of these comments that I've gotten, and you'll see them posted on social media. I had a principal, she said that, Trey, last year we were like in-laws. This year we're like cousins level because the teams are working better together and building stronger teams. Somebody said that, this year we have a new spirit. We've taken time to get to know us. We've taken time to understand our strengths, and that's making it easier for us to do what we love. That's ultimately what it comes down to. When you're facilitating purpose, facilitate means to make easier. Purpose is your reason for doing. My job is to make it easier for teachers, leaders, and other organizations that I work with, nonprofits, universities, make it easier for you all to do more of what you love. This is really just my space and my opportunity to mm, get on the soapbox for a moment and talk to you all about the work that I'm proud of, about the work I've been working on for 7, 8 years and starting to see the momentum and the success that folks are looking for. I'm proud people want to work with me. I'm proud that they don't have to be convinced to work with me. And I'm proud that we're helping people leverage their strengths so they can be better at work and at home. Most of the communities that I'm working with today are either interested in investing in their people beyond curriculum and pedagogy, transitioning leaders that want to build buy-in and establish a new climate more quickly, and burnt out teams or leadership staffs that need help leveraging their strengths so they can be more effective in their roles, both personally and professionally. If you haven't already, you're going to see plenty of strengths-based training clips and everyday strengths clips hanging out on social media. So be sure that you check those out. And you can also visit our website, strengthsbasedtraining.com, where now there is access to schedule a call with us to support your school or your leadership team. But there's also some opportunities for you to sign up for one-on-one coaching and some self-paced assessment and debrief, which we'll be adding more and more to the repertoire as time goes on. Thank you so much for listening to Everyday Strengths, and stay tuned for some more information about how to leverage your strengths to be more effective in your personal and professional life.